Thank you so much, sir, and taking this privilege to introduce Dr. Evi Untoro, ma'am. She is a forensic pathologist, medical legal consultant, and forensic medicine specialist. She is currently serving as head of the department, Forensic Medical Legal and Sciences. She is a member of Indonesian National DVI team since 2007, the Indonesian Banten Province DVI team since 2016, the advisory team in forensic pathology, etc. She has been working in some private and government hospitals for forensic cases, clinical and pathology, and also has been called upon as a witness expert in some forensic cases around Asia and the Pacific. She has written some articles and publications as well as forensic book and research in forensic DNA database of Indonesian and Asian. Publications on Elsewhere 2009 on the allele frequency of CODIS 13 of the Indonesian DNA database. She has 5 years of experience in the identification of Japanese soldiers' human remains of World War II, victims of missing in action in Papua and Makassar, Indonesia, with the permission and invitation of the Japanese government and Japanese embassy in Indonesia, which added more knowledge and skills to her performance in forensic work. She was involved in many disasters in Indonesia, natural and unnatural, and took joint training on DVI in several countries, including the DVI Interpol Guide as an international standard. We hand over the session to you, ma'am.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for
Yes.
accepting the invitation. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Arti. Thank you, Dr. Ranjit. May I share my screen? Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, perfectly visible.
Is it good in your laptop?
Yes, perfectly fine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have this team. This topic is from ISR and Dr. Ranjit us, and we have this meeting discussion about what we're going to talk about. And the team we talk about is forensic to protect the vulnerable. And my let's see, why is it not working? Is it working? Okay, from my task is my point of view, because I am a forensic pathologist, which is I also working in a forensic clinic, and we talking about here is clinical forensic medicine. There is a forensic pathology for the dead bodies, and of course we working with forensic anthropology, forensic archaeology, forensic radiology, odontology, and the two previous speakers, Professor Emilio and Professor Hemlata, already talk about the forensic odontology and the tips and the tricks of the examination. And forensic genetic DNA, forensic toxicology, and this is actually a quite big scope. It's about torture and death in custody, and also right now the trend, actually not the trend because social media talking about this, and it's also happening all over the world because maybe because the pandemic, the caregiver is exhaustion, and then it happened like actually it's iceberg phenomenons with elderly abuse. And here, the law that we need to learn as a forensic scientists or forensic pathologists or forensic odontologists and other forensics who work here, in also investigator and also the prosecutor and the judge. We are hanging on the United Nations Official High Commissioner of Human Rights, which is there having this Istanbul Protocol. And also this Istanbul Protocol also have the training actually maybe once in a year or something. And we have Protocol Minnesota, which is the guidelines more step by step in examine what kind of laceration or wounds, and we can found it as torture. And of course the death in custody, because if there is a death happen in prison, so it should be done by the autopsy. It's not quite enough when we only doing the external examination, because one, there were in the custody or in the prison, that which is there is a guardian who take care of them, actually should be. And then the second is the family would like to know what is the cause of death of the prisoner or the person they loved who are put into the jail. And here, before the first that Professor Emilio already talked about these vulnerable groups, we always having this using the United Nations definition that there are some people, the groups, they categorize as African descent. Why? Because the injustice of enslavement, colonial result, and maybe the poor and most marginalized groups. But this is also happening, what we call maybe white supremacy in America, in US, United States, where so many Black people were accused of doing something. Or as we see that it might be African descent, maybe. In France, in near Paris, there is a teenager that was stopped by the police in France, but he don't want to stop, and the police shot him. So this is what we call it quite a vulnerable people as well. And then the Islamophobia, all right, when you have the religion Islam and you maybe the women who wear hijab and walking in the Paris in France, and somebody took out your hijab, and or they don't want to be eating with you in restaurant because you are having this hijab or something. So it's also, we call it vulnerable people. And women and girls, discrimination, gender, extra vulnerable. And here, indigenous people, of course, and because actually they kind of a small community right now, and it's only 6.2% in global population, so there are vulnerable as well. Here, Emilio already said that Roma population. Why? Because described as they have been persecuted of hundreds of years by the Nazi regime, and then the Roma Holocaust in 2 August. And then we call it, right now, they're still persist today. And their majority are sedentary people and nomadic. And minority, what is we call minority? There's so many, it's a large definition on it. So such as shared ethnicity, carries both objective factor, language, religion, and we call it minority group, but it will be defined the smaller group. Here, refugee, asylum seeker, internally displaced people. They are very vulnerable, like the asylum seeker, like we shall know that in UK, there were moving to the, like a boat, and actually it's just moving one place to another place, that making they are not free, actually. And the people in France, in Calais, in the refugee camp, and internally displaced people like Rohingya people or Uyghur people. And we call them our vulnerable people. And here, people living in extreme poverty, so they don't have any choose to have their own life. Like if you would like to have this bread, you can sleep with me. You can make love with me and I will give you bread. So it's always also vulnerable people. Here, also the homophobic and transphobic attitude as well around the world. And it depends on the country. Maybe European region is more open, but in other region like Asia is more phobia of this kind of community, LGBTQI. And here, discrimination and hate-motivated violence against them is widespread and brutal. It's very brutal all over the world, and often perpetrated with impunity, even worse, belonging to racialized community. Maybe is a very in a very religious country like Brunei Darussalam. These groups is prohibited to have to show themselves. So otherwise there will be a death penalty for them. if they showed if there are this community. So here, the declaration of Durban and program of action of these vulnerable people by the UN already done, but we shall doing more on is like exclusion, violence, discrimination against them often compounded. And here the action is by them they say that the principle of equality, non-discrimination from the basis of all human rights instrument, and the matter of human rights laws, all women must be entitled full enjoyment of their human rights. It's also actually happened in the Chinese descendant during our pandemic time. So if you see in the train in New York that people call out the Asian to get home, go home to your place, China. Actually, they were born in USA. So this is also a kind of vulnerable people as well. So the principle is equality with other human, then non-discrimination. And women is very vulnerable groups. They're according to their age, socioeconomic status, whereas also having this domestic violence and racial ethnic background, as we see from also religion and national origin, like female genital mutilation. It's still happening in some African countries or some Islamic religion countries. But actually the UN already giving more education and more approaching to the group leader to not doing this female genital mutilation to them, because it's a torture, it's hurting, and it's humiliating, and it's nothing have any benefit on it. So actually it's like a circumcision in male, but this is happening to the clitoris of the female. So we call it female genital mutilation. And the status, of course, are you married or are you widow? Sometimes it's also happen a discrimination around the community itself. And also the health. Do they get the health the same, equal with others, like and other disability people? Here, the vulnerable people also in other books of justice, criminal justice, they also say it's happening to the people who are young in age. And why? Because they have the physical, mental, intellectual disability or needs. And also some of the other is because the old in age. Death in custody. The person who got in the prison, they are discriminated by their origin because they're different with the others in the prison, and the gender, and also sexual orientation. Right now in I think it's a problem as well in US and UK for the transgender. Where should we put them? As a male or as a female? That's a different of their sexual orientation. And if we put them as the transgender as a woman and we put them in the male jail or prison, what will happen to them? So we have to do this non-discrimination, and we have to take care of them who are vulnerable. And this is also we have the handbook of prisoner in the United Nations. Here in also the Higher Commissioner of Human Rights, that providing appropriate assistance to the victim, public education, of course, like female genital mutilation and others, to prevent future incidents of violence motivated by racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance. Here, from the UN, we also have this Istanbul Protocol, actually for the manual effective investigation, documentation of torture, other cruel and human degrading treatment or punishment. It's also we using this for the death in the custody as well. Here, the medical expert doing the investigation here, and as the highest ethical standard, doing informed consent before examination. And this is for the person who are still alive. And if not alive, then for the family, we're asking the informed consent. And after we do the examination, we make accurate written report And the report should be the following. First is interview and the background and physical psychological examination. And if we are competent on it, we can ask the psychologist or we can ask the psychiatrist to do the examination more deepen or more complete. And we, after in the report, we write our opinion. Is this interpretation of probable relationship of physical and psychological findings? Is it causality or non-causality with that wounds or laceration? And the possible torture or ill treatment of the person? And any other recommendation or referring of the treatment, we should do the referring. And the record of authorship, it means we have to sign our report by ourselves as a doctor who doing the examination. And also we also interview or we got the story from the witness or the witnesses. And of course we have to divide, is this necessary or is it causality or is it including with the torture itself? Is this a story is aligned with the torture itself? Here, the medical legal evidence within the notes, medical charts, we have this body chart in the next slides. And collecting the evidence, the history, the physical evidence, the medical legal, the investigation is not only us who doing these kind of questions, but also the police and investigator who are appointed by the team that looking for the cases or this project of the cases. And then the legal assistant, it will be have a support from should be from the national administrative and judicial remedies. And here what happened if there is a torture or ill treatment happening in the person, there is a remedies and reparation, and also need to be compensation of the victim. And there is also the step-by-step guidelines by Protocol Minnesota. And I think we are the forensic, we call it forensic experts, should know about this. This is investigation potentially revised by United Nations Manual to Effective Prevention, Investigation of Extralegal, Arbitrary, and Summary Execution. Here, there is an investigation process, collecting and managing data, important physical location, the location of the death of the crime scenes, and the family, and understanding the victim, and writing the findings, looking for the findings, interviewing, protecting witness, international technical assistance, and telecommunication and financial issues, and chronology of the events. As we know that we have this international guide to do the identification. The best is standard we doing using the disaster victim identification Interpol guide, which is the form is already completed with all the checklists we need to use. But some of maybe still doing the within the ICRC or WHO form in doing the identification. But we can do the combine of it all to do the best of identification of the person or the dead body. So we have to first from the scene, and then if dead body and the post-mortem, or if alive, we doing that in the clinical forensic medicine, and we taking the data from the family, which is antemortem, or from the witnesses about what happened, the story of the cases, and then we doing the matching, and then we write the report. Here, the detailed guidelines, crime scene investigation, introduction, photographic, measurement, and note taking and data collection for inventory. And how about its human remains? There is a labeling, inventory, intake bodies, skeletal remains on the surface. Is it buried or skeletal remains? And consideration in recovery of buried remains. Labeling of the body or dead body or surrounding, they have the properties. So if there is, we would like to see the time of death, maybe, or the period of the time of the person or the skeletal remains death. We can ask also the expertise from the forensic archaeology as well. So here, identification of the dead bodies, the general principle, visual recognition, scientific approach of identification, and events with multiple deaths. There is a mass grave or a mass victims that may be commingle in one place. So we do the conclusion about the identity. Here, we use the identifier as the primary identifier. We're using the fingerprint and odontology and also DNA. For the last slide, we see the death in Maui in Hawaii, mostly asking for the DNA sampling from the family. It's kind of, yeah, if we read it now, it's about 1,100 victims might be. So it's quite difficult to do the mostly identification. It's like in World Trade Center cases then. And the secondary identification is visual, properties, documents, medical record. There is a scar, birthmark, or tattoos and unique characteristic of the person. And types of evidence and sampling: human biological evidence, non-biological and digital evidence, and forensic accounting. Soil, don't forget, if we doing the exhumation or we found the mass grave, maybe we can take the soil as a sample. Is it because the surrounding poison the people there, like we see in the chamber of the Holocaust, the Nazi time? So in autopsy, general principle, the role of radiological imaging for potentially unlawful death, because we can see from the imaging, we can see the recalcification of the bones, and we can see there is a chronic torture of the person to the fracture of their bones. So it's more easy to looking for from the dead body for the inside bones or the fracture of the bones. And the detailed guideline of autopsy, background principle, the closed body, external examination, then internal examination, and further testing like toxicology and other, maybe we need the DNA sampling, and concluding the cause of death, and then doing the autopsy report and autopsy sign of possible of the torture. Here, exhumation or the grave finding, we took the soil sample. We match it with the toxicology of the dead body or the human remains. Is it possibly dead? They were still alive in there and they get poisoned, and so we can take the soil from the surrounding as well to know about the toxicology problems surrounding the body. Here, analysis of skeletal remains, the introduction, infrastructure analysis skeletal remains, and preparing skeletal remains for analysis, and remaining analysis and report. Here, forensic anthropology, as we see from skeleton, we have to write down what we see, and we can see from also the wounds or laceration. Is it happening by the torture or because of the accident? We can looking for more completely in the examination. And then analysis of the skeletal remains, we inventories MNI, minimal numbers of individuals, like in commingle cases or in mass grave. We might know, we have to know how many minimal, at least minimal numbers of individuals. And then maybe it depends on the facility, like plain X-ray, or right now I suggest is postmortem CT scanning, and the cleaning of the sampling, and then the reconstruction. And here, postmortem CT scanning, we doing why we screening the body bag or the coffin within the screening the hazard. It might be in this kind of war, we can see if we got the body bag from Bucha in Ukraine, we might be very careful on it. Maybe there is a hand grenade inside, so we have to screening of the hazard maybe, and then we can examine the trauma of the person by the CT scanning, because it's 360 degrees. It's very easy to examine after we storage the body, and then we can examine from the screen that we already recorded. And also we can find if there is a commingle of the dead bodies inside the body bag or the coffin. And then the laboratory, we took the sample for DNA and also toxicology sample if we would like to know is that a cases of the poison or not. And then biological profile, we shall could estimate the age, like the previous speaker said, is we can estimate from the tooth, another from the other stature, and then the sex, female or male, and ancestry, what kind of descendant are they, and then their stature and the trauma before dying, or the postmortem changes and the period of time of sinus death. And we see here the forensic taxonomy that it could be changes in human body after death because of scavengers, eating by the animals, or plant activity around them. And we should ask the expert for forensic archaeology to know the dating method. So if you they will looking at like we found your human remains in the archaeological site, they will know about the dating method. Is it because by the property around there, like coins or artifacts or Gucci or something there, they will know the period of time that the human might live there. And here in Protocol Minnesota, we have the annexes, the anatomical sketches, case detail form, firearm wound chart, and stop wound laceration chart, and adult dental chart. That the dental chart has already been told by Professor Emilio. And this Minnesota Protocol investigation potentially unlawful death, common standard performance investigating potentially unlawful death, share set of principle and guideline for stage, institution, and individuals for us, forensic expert, and who play a role in that investigation. So this is for all, not only forensic pathologists or forensic odontologists, but for all, even investigator or the judge or the police, to understand, is it a lawful, unlawful death happened to the person. And here, if we see, this is some of the chart that there is should be careful, because we have this laceration chart. We have to write down, is it the one happening because of the torture? Like here, maybe people, the victim were tortured or ripping the fingernails, or by the laceration on the wrist, they call it la bandera, and also from the plantar. They may be whipping with the ruler or something, that hard surface. So if you see the prisoner when they're standing and they're not, they cannot say something, maybe when we see, we visit our family in the jail or something, and we never know they were tortured because it's only the plantar. So as the forensic expert or the medical examiner, we should see from the head to the toe. If the plantar is already having this hematome or laceration wound, it's a sign of the torture. We call it the soles or hands or hips, the phalanga or phalaka laceration. And here also the skeletal remains. And the documents to learn more about this, we have this from the guidelines, also from ICRC, investigating death in the custody, and identification of human remains, and documentation of human rights violation, and this manual Istanbul Protocol that we already talked about. And here, don't forget that also hidden laceration because of the torture, and there is we call it there is a kind of wound that they put the metal inside the anus. They call it the black slave. is also written in the chart. So that kind of problems or the kind of a sign of torture we have to look at for. And here, as I said before, it might be happening the female genital mutilation, and then we cut off the clitoris over here. So we have to look for the wounds or the torture. And also it's happened for the sexual assault cases, even for the male or the female as well. So here the laceration chart, and we have to see from head to toe. For the drowning cases, we have to see the head. Is it there were like there is a story kind of movie like when the investigation of the maybe the army to ask for the spy, and they doing this waterboard. They're putting water inside the mouth until the lung is full and drowning. It could be water, it could be urine, it could be feces. So we have to do the examination on it. And then also the ears, they call it weeping of the ears. And then there is also injury that wounds. It could be acute wounds or the chronic wounds, and it's mean the repeated injury from the head to the toe to the person. So from this chart, we can learn and see what kind of signs and symptom that we shall look at for the torture victims when we do the examination to them, even they are dead or alive. Here, another one is elderly abuse, including vulnerable people, the abuse and neglection from the family, friends, and community. Mostly if we see in US is so many homeless people, they're veteran from the war, and they also got abuse from the people surrounding them. And also the people, the elderly, they will stay in the senior house. They got abuse, the hidden abuse from the caregiver. It might be the caregiver have a mental illness problems, or the caregiver is exhausted to take care of them. And there is could be undernutrition or malnutrition, or the untold wounds, like if there is hematome and there is a laceration, and then the caregiver said they might fall from the bed, or they might fall in the bathroom, like that. So we have to do the examination from head to toe as well. And some of the cases might be poison. If we have learned about, there is a cases that in Germany, where is the senior home, many senior male and female die in the very what we call it in a very tight time, because like after 2 days the other elderly die, after 2 days the elderly die, and then the insurance is all for to the caregiver. So after 20 deaths of the elderly, and then the medical examiner is suspicion with him, and then doing the autopsy, and found it that all the elderly are die because of the poison. So we have to understand about this. So there is actually should be even to the vulnerable people that having this wound or laceration or die. Actually, we should do the forensic examination more completely to them, because they might be don't have a voice to defend themselves. So it is our task to do that to them. Here, the role of prosecutors or judges, national human rights institution, and other actors in the investigation of tortures play critical role upholding human rights, including absolute non-derogable rights of freedom from torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. And here, if there is international cases, like if we know that the journalist of the, actually he was born in Saudi Arabia, but he became the citizen of US, and he got killed actually murder in the Turkish embassy in the Turkey for the Arabian embassy. So should be done by the International Criminal Court or the journalist in Al Jazeera journalist who was shot in Israel between the Palestinian and Israel might be a chaotic time at that time. So it should be done and bring it to the International Criminal Court. But before that, if we are appointed as a judge, as an expert to do the report, so we have to write down the best report for all the wounds and the torture or the laceration or the trauma that the victim have. And the criminal court, International Criminal Court or ICC, responsible for cases of genocide, like the former leader of Yugoslavia, and crimes against humanity and war crimes and crime aggression to the list. Like I said, the journalists cases who die, journalists, right? So they have this actually the ethical in journalism in the war. So also us as a medic, we have the impunity to be respected in our work in the war. So International Criminal Court has jurisdiction over cases alleging torture as a war crime, and particularly when torture is committed as part of a planned policy or large-scale commission. Right now, maybe most of the part of the world would like to take President Putin of Russia to take them to the International Criminal Court as well. So this is so many cases we have to do. Like, is there the citizen kill in Bucha in Ukraine? We have to examine them completely. So it might be can take President Putin to International Criminal Court for his responsibility. So thank you for this. I hope I can open your mind a little bit about the Istanbul Protocol and Protocol Minnesota for us as the forensic expert to understand what to do in the cases forensic for vulnerable people. Thank you.